Genuinely, I've never had it be this awkward with these, if anyone knows what they're doing with these cubes. These yellows in the middle? Have you and your team ever felt slightly overwhelmed by a complex problem? Well, as a facilitator, I will always say, trust the process, because I design custom processes for teams to come together to solve complex problems. So I just want to talk about that, about trusting the process and how that can help you and your team solve big strategic problems. So I'm sure very often you and your team are confronted by challenges that look pretty complex. There's lots of ways you could approach it and you're not quite sure which way to do it. So that's exactly where the facilitation process comes in. It's about providing a process that you can use to start to make sense of things that look pretty complicated. So for example, with this, the first thing you want to do is try and find the white cross on the top. And that's the first indication that you know you're on track if you can get that white cross all aligned. So it's the same with the strategy workshops that I run. You want to have that collective starting point when everyone can get aligned. My process, the process I ask you to trust in, revolves around the 4 C's: collect, choose, create, and commit. So as we're collecting information, we want to collectively understand the problem so we can get an initial sense of agreeing that we're solving the same thing. And from agreed starting point, we can start to pull together exercises that allow the team's expertise to come together in a way that will help us start to see some progress towards a solution around our complex challenge. There are often times with the complex challenges that I work with teams on as a facilitator that it doesn't feel quite like there's the progress. But what always happens with a well-facilitated session is you start to see those little glimpses of things coming together and starting to align. And that's where I say, trust the process. What we can do together, facilitating your team and expertise, is start to get little wins like this as we move towards something that everyone can get excited about. You can see that there's something coming together. Collecting lots of information is all well and good, but obviously you have to choose what you want to go forward with. A lot of the exercises that I'll use with teams are around trying to find those things that are most key. Can you spot little clues as to which things are going to make the difference first? So can you see which bits are going to align in a way that you can start to build up more of a solution to the challenge? So by trusting the process, I find that what we can help teams with is something that looked complex before can really start to make more sense to everyone. And those little wins allow us to come together and think, right, well, we're starting to make sense, we're starting to align, and you can see potential solutions come out. But it's not like this bit is easy. Now, inevitably, you're going to get moments when you're going to get some missteps. So that looks really promising there, but actually, I'm going to have to mess this up anyway. So you do have to have a bit of faith that rather going for the quick win, if I just hold it this way, is actually, there's a bit more work to be done. And sometimes that's the case, so we have to backpedal and go back if our instinct is that we're not quite solving the right problem, or the information we've gathered isn't quite enough to allow us to make progress towards coming up with solutions. So we go back and we do the process. Trust in the process. And the process can get us to that point where we're almost there. there you go. So the process allows you to get to this point where you've got more of a clear solution. But it's not always easy. There are lots of different ways of doing it, and this is just one. But the process has got me to here. But as we all know, that's all very good and well. This one is one, but sometimes the challenge can look a lot more difficult. And the key to that though is still to trust the process. I might change the exercises that I do with teams, and that will all be based on understanding their particular challenges and what they need. Underlying that is still the process of approaching it with the 4 C's, of using that approach to collect, choose, create and commit in a way that allows them to get to a solution. While this may look more complex, can we pick out some commonalities that allow us to approach it in a strategic way? You probably can see that this is partly on its way to being solved, but there's just a few things to resolve and we'll start to see some patterns. And if you fundamentally understand the process and trust in it, then you can find ways to get back to stuff that you feel comfortable with. So in this particular example, oh look, the white cross again. And what that means is we can again come together and be like, oh, it feels more complex, but we've got something we can do with this. So let's apply the process and let's make progress. And with those fundamental building blocks, what that allows me as a facilitator to do is work with a range of different organisations, listening carefully to what their particular challenges are. But no matter how different and complex they start to look, I can still find ways to help them come together, align and find a way through some pretty complex challenges. But let's be clear, your challenges in your organisation are not like a Rubik's Cube. There are analogies to be made, but let's be clear, as complex as these can get, there's still a process I can follow that will get me to the solution eventually, and we can look at different exercises to help us do that. And for example, I could teach you how to solve this. And I could teach you in a session how to do it, and you might have some success, you go away from the session and you can never do it again. So I could maybe teach you more of the principles so that you could do it in the session and then you could repeat it afterwards. But ultimately, to be able to consistently do it, you need to understand the process and you need to be consistently practicing it as well. So yes, it's important that I can facilitate the process, but I also work on building in those skills to your organisation so you can carry on applying that process afterwards so that you can still see it in more complex examples. So no, I am not equating your challenges to the simplicity of a kid's toy. But what I am saying is the process is really important, and when I work with organisations and we trust the process, we get really, really exciting results at the end with that huge sense of accomplishment and a clear alignment and a direction of travel. So, if you're keen to work with me, I'm going to talk about the process, I'm going to ask you to trust it, and hopefully that helps you understand why.